Thank you for staying with us. Right now, we get into Family Check, and our conversation today is a bit of a heavy conversation, and it's a conversation that many a times is not spoken out loud. It is spoken in very harsh tones, but that is why we are here, and we are here to ensure that we are demystifying that and just finding a way in which we can change the narrative on suicide. That is what we will be looking into, and just going by the statistics that are out here. According to World Health Organization, it shows that 727,000 people die by suicide each year globally. And closer home, we lose about 3 to 4 people daily in Kenya from suicide. So clearly the numbers are daunting, and we need to look into this and try to find a solution and trying to see what is contributing mainly to this and how can we get to work on the prevention bit of it. And I'm more than pleased to have the guests I have in studio today, because I have a psychologist and I have a therapist. Let me begin by introducing the lady. That is Judith Pelukini. Judith is a therapist. She's a leadership coach as well as an author. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you here this morning. Then we have William Deche Mwachiro, and Deche is a psychologist. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Just the right people for this conversation. First of all, you know, I began by mentioning the numbers, but before we even get to the numbers, why is it that suicide is not spoken about loudly? Why is it that it is such a difficult topic for families, for communities, and you know, for the entire world, I would say, at large? So why is it such a difficult topic?
I think I would say, obviously, first of all, I just want to say this is quite a challenging topic for everybody. So if you have gone through this, either you've lost a person, I want to say, first of all, just make sure you're taking care of yourself. But I think it's, in terms of your question, why is it difficult? I think there is a stigma around mental health in general. So let alone the suicide bit, but just as a whole, when people have mental health in Kenya and, you know, around the world, it's seen as a something not to be spoken about. It's something like there's shame around it. People need to be quiet about it, because I don't know what the stigma is, because, you know, when people are sick in normal diseases, we share it, but when it comes to mental health, there is this stigma attached to it. So I think that's the first point, where mental health as a whole is hidden. So to start helping this conversation move forward, we need to make mental health normal. It needs to be normalized. It needs to be part of our daily conversation, so that we can focus more on prevention rather than getting to this extreme of people dying by suicide.
Yeah, and Deche, you know, even looking at the demographics, more men are dying by suicide compared to women, almost double, triple the numbers. What is contributing to this?
Well, I'd like to point out the whole reality of gender role stereotypes that are there. First of all, explaining to a man that he shouldn't express any sense of fear, any sense of sadness, crying. That causes a whole downpour, because this individual won't be able to express themselves. Once you cage up emotions, it's an equivalent of tying a plastic bag on where a tap is and switching on the tap. It's eventually going to pop. So that's what happens. There are depressive episodes during the time, because as we get to understand, when we come to suicide and depression, it doesn't simply start off like that. There's a whole storyline. So I'd like to really affirm what Judith has pointed out. If you're not feeling okay, make sure you seek help, because it starts very early, that chronic stress. It starts with issues at home. And you're not able to express them. So that builds up into a mental disorder, where we'll have depression and we have anxiety. And then, due to the fear of stigmatization, this person won't open up, and it might eventually lead to very severe conditions, or even suicide by itself. And we get to see even the means used by men are quite intensive. There's stabbing, hanging, you know, shooting. It's an expression of the pain that is there, not being capable to express oneself to the fullest. And it clogs, and eventually it pops.
Yeah. So we would say that, you know, part of it is that suicide is, it's an escape from pain that has bottled up over time. So it's not a single act. There's no point, suicide can be a single act. It's always a process. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is a process. Firstly, we can't really point out suicide having one key cause. Because if we think about it that way, then we generalize everyone's situation from the perspective of one key cause. Let us learn to understand suicide from a perspective of risk factors. Financial issues, family, workplace. It all builds up to that, and eventually it crushes this individual, and once they feel they can't express themselves, they have nowhere to go, they take their own lives. And usually it's an act to try resolve that situation at that moment, a solution to a situation that seems unbearable at that moment. Do you agree to that, the fact that it's not really a single act, it's something that progresses over time? Or do we have situations where, as a therapist, that you understand that it can happen just as a single act, that I've decided today and I've never thought about it and I proceed to do it?
I think some people can do that depending on the mental illness that you have. Because sometimes, you know, when we talk about suicide or people dying by suicide, we assume that it's a gradual thing, but sometimes people have mental health issues, so they might have, you know, bipolar, schizophrenia, or, you know, they could have psychosis episodes. So that could trigger someone to take their life by suicide without having thought about it before, because it's a manic episode and people just, you know, you've heard of people jumping off bridges, etc. So it could be a mental illness that triggers that, but also there could be, you know, like William says, it gradually grows. And one thing I want to say is, when we think about suicide, I think a lot of people always go to the end of, you know, someone has, let's say, been going through these severe things. But it could just be someone's been bullied for quite a while. So it doesn't have to be economic or relationship. It could be one of those things, but it could be just someone dealing with bullying since childhood. And now they're grown up and they cannot seem to function in the workplace. Therefore, they're kind of like, you know, not progressing or losing jobs. And the cause would be bullying. But also, it could be something as, you know, young people now, they struggle with socializing. So it could be isolation. So they're staying at home all the time and they're unable to come out, social isolation. So they're not able to go out. So they're staying at home, and that then breeds this feeling of loneliness and not being able to communicate to the wider world, and therefore they can start planning suicide. So it could be really small things, and I don't want to say small and diminish what's happening, but it could be something that you might not, like family members might not think about. They're like, oh, this person's always in their room. They know this person never comes out, and they're like, oh yeah, they're just an introvert. Leave them alone. And then the next thing, they're gone. So I think just be careful as a family member when you see people, your children, or, you know, a parent. You know, it could be a pregnant woman, has a baby, and then she's just in bed, and then stays in bed for a year and still never leaves the house. That postpartum, you know, depression. And when people say, oh, she's just a mother, she's getting used to it, she'll be fine, the next minute the person's gone. You know, or it could be societal pressures. You know, woman is being told you need to have children, you need to get married. The woman is working, they're having a social life, but this burden of this thing I need to be doing, and then because they're not achieving that, suddenly they're gone. So I think there could be the day-to-day things that we don't think about. You know, that could seem quite minute, but they're not really. They're the triggers that make people really get drawn to ending their life by suicide. So I would say, you know, people talk about what do we need to kind of pay attention to. Just pay attention to people being like their personality changing, like abruptly or slowly. You like the person who used to be disappears. So yeah, it could be abrupt, or it could be building up, or it could be something that could be seen as, oh, she was fine, she's normal.
Yeah. And even with that, I would like our audience and our viewers to get to interact with us. Maybe the question I may ask you, if someone close to you was struggling right now, would you notice it? Would you notice if someone close to you is struggling in any way? Are you in a position to notice it? And if you actually do, or if you actually do notice it, are you that person that they can come to and speak to? So talk to us. The number is 0707-303-212. I would love to hear from you. As we said, it's a silent conversation. Most people don't like to talk about it. Most people don't like to admit that maybe there's a member of the family that died by suicide. But we're demystifying that. So let's talk about it. I'll be glad to get to read your responses on the same. Speaking about young people, going by the numbers from the research that has been done over the years, it shows that nowadays, you know, the leading cause of death in young people, and by young it's between the ages of 15 to 29, suicide is actually up there. It is among the leading causes of death for younger people between the ages of 15 to 29. So why is it so particular to the younger people? And maybe someone may ask the question of, are younger people today facing different challenges compared to the previous generations? Deche.
Quite an interesting question. It makes us reflect the whole idea of social change that happens. As a young person, you're experiencing different situations in the world. However, based on the conditioning that might have happened during the parental stage, it might not be quite blending into the current situation. So we see the whole factor of identity conflict that might be happening. And with the identity conflict, there's a high possibility of isolation that probably happens. And, you know, I tend to say human beings are driven by the whole factor of desire. Desire is centered by what we observe happening outside. And once we are constantly conditioned on a specific line, you need to work very hard, get your money, buy your car. I mean, it's not a bad thing. However, now once you put that much pressure onto a young soul, they feel lost. And once they feel lost, they feel like, you know, I haven't been able to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. Therefore, you know, it's draining for them. And that's where, unfortunately, we see suicide taking place, because you feel you've let down a lot of people based on the pressure.
There's the pressure to make it. Was this pressure never there back then?
Well, I can't say 100%, but what I can say is it was there. However, we are a growing civilization. What we believed back then, what we stood for back then, keeps on changing to date. Therefore, the expectations that were had might have been centered on the whole specifics of back then. And it doesn't blend in quite well to the present. Once we become rigid with the whole factor of progress, then we lose it. Because rigidity doesn't go well. The whole factor of identity, the whole factor of thought process should be fluid. Once we clog the whole factor of fluidity, then we see identity beginning to tumble into crisis. You know, people start asking, am I really worth this? Just because of the conditioning that was happening back then. You need to pass. You know, you see the person burning maize, if you don't read enough, you look like that person. And that's where we lose the kids. That might, or I don't know, might have worked back then. But in the present, I think we need to be more in tune with the diversity that is happening, get to understand our kids from the whole perspective of what they're capable of, not what we forcefully want them to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Judith, just from your point of view, why is it that we're losing more younger people to suicide now? If you look at that age group, those are really young people, from 15 to 29.
Really young.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as William said, society is changing, but I also think social media has opened up to a lot of things. So while, you know, maybe when I was growing up and there wasn't social media, I didn't see, you know, everybody's success that was my age. I didn't see, you know, America, what they would do. I didn't see the UK, what the kids were doing there. So there's a lot of comparison from the whole world, essentially, versus where you are. So if I grew up in Eastlands in Umoja, so if I was, grew up there, and then I see someone in America running their business at 15, techno, they're saying they're making £10 million, a month or whatever on AI, and I'm still in Umoja Estate, like trying to figure out what we're going to eat. Do you know what I mean? So I think the comparison is no longer just with your neighbor, like it used to be. It's now with the global world. And I think that's creating the enormous pressure that's happening. But I also think just some of the core skills that we had, some of the conflict resolving skills, when I was growing up, we were riding bikes. And when it was my turn, I was like, hey, it's my turn, get off the bike. And they would start fighting and they'd be like, no, I want to tell. And I'd be like, no, so I was negotiating my way to get what I want. And I think this generation, the age that you've, because again of social media and computers and living on a machine, they don't have those skills of negotiating for yourself, speaking up for yourself. I know I was always speaking up for myself with my friends. And if someone said I did something, I'd be like, hey, come, tell me, show me what I did. These kids don't do that anymore. They're just behind the screen. So some of the key skills that we need in life to actually interact with each other as humans, we're losing that massively. You see, when I was growing up again, when I shook hands with someone, they'd be like, what's the handshake? Proper handshake, give me a handshake. And I would have to do it again and make it really strong. So I know every time I shake people's hands, they're like, oh my God, that's a handshake. But people, the young kids these days, nobody nurtures that. So some of the key skills that we need as humans are getting lost because of the screens, and not because of the generation. It's just the screens and the way society is moving. Now, it feels like we almost need to find a new way to kind of bring back those skills of negotiating, speaking up for yourself, finding ways out, conflict resolution. We need to find all of those ways. And then the comparison factor, we need to kind of bring that down to real life. We need to explain to our kids, what you see in social media is not really the real deal. It could be just highlights. It could be just, someone showing their best parts. Because people don't see anyone struggling in social media. So
no, we don't see that.
If the young people are struggling, they're like, okay, something's wrong with me. And so I'm not useful. So the easiest way is for me to just exit, because I've got nothing to bring to the world. Because everybody else is showing all their highlights and they're struggling. So I think that's also a major issue. And also I think parenting has changed. When I was growing up, parents would say, you're doing this, that and the other, and we just followed, because it's like the parents, and you get beaten out of, to get to do the task. Now parenting is changing. These kids want to negotiate and talk to their parents and say, I don't want to do that course that you're trying to get me to do, I want to do this other thing. But the parents haven't changed. So the communication between parent and child is getting disconnected. And so their peers are becoming the 15 to 23 or 29-year-olds. That's becoming their peers. That's their role models. And they're all showing things that are not realistic. So I think that isolation can make people feel they're useless, hopelessness. They will never get to that bit where this other person on social media is doing something. And that can bring those feelings of, do you know what? There's no use for me to live again. So there has to be those real conversations like, what we're doing today. And I think also, it could be the suicide narrative could be a systematic issue. So we might start to have an education piece where the government can come in and maybe give funding to schools so that mental health practitioners can go into schools and start talking about what mental health is, how we can show up, why it shows up, who gets it, which is everybody can get mental health. So I think those are some of the things that are missing that we could probably start bringing back.
And actually my next question was, how do we change that, especially for the younger people? And I feel you've answered that, even speaking about intentionally going to speak to these
Yeah.
younger people on matters mental health and helping them understand what this thing is, you know, where it can maybe stem from, and
Yeah.
when it does, being open to speak about it and
100%.
mentioning that I have this problem, I do not feel okay,
Yeah.
because there's that fear of judgment
Yeah.
that lingers around. I am sure most people will agree with that. There's that fear of judgment of, if I tell people I'm not okay, how will I be viewed?
Yeah.
You know, will they see me as a weak person, especially for men? Will I be deemed as a weak person?
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah.
maybe we should also just work on that judgment part
Yeah.
of society, I would say.
Absolutely.
Whereby we judge people too harshly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a post on social media before where a lady just, you know, had noted down and spoken about the fact that she's struggling a lot and she feels like she's not useful in this world anymore. And you read the comments and you are astonished.
Yeah.
And it is so saddening because other people, you'd see people saying, why are you telling us? Just go ahead and do it. You know, like
Yeah.
the comment section was just, I don't know what can be done in order for us to ensure that we are even breathing empathy into
Yeah.
people, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I think mental health is seen as because there's no measure. You know, when you break your leg or you've got cancer, there's like measurables of what's wrong with you. Versus mental health, it's almost like this elusive thing in your brain that people can't see.
Yeah.
But there's actually neurological issues going on inside the brain, which is why people have mental health issues. And I think that explanation in terms of there's a neurological condition going on in your brain, that's similar to a broken leg, but it's in the brain that's happening. We can explain it that way, and also make mental health a normal conversation, like normalize talking about mental health and measuring it as in, you know, if you had a cold, let's say, you take some medicine for it. If you have a headache, you take some medicine. The same way if you have mental health, you just go to a therapist and get it fixed. And we just need to normalize it from that perspective.
It's a condition like every
It's a condition
other.
like any other disease that people might have. I think the idea of, you know, I think for me, when I was growing up, mental health was like just madare. That's the only mental health I knew. It was like, okay. And that's quite an extreme from someone just feeling loneliness.
Yeah.
And that escalating into dying by suicide. So I think we need to make sure to say to people, mental health is a disease like any other disease. You do not need to feel embarrassed about. And you know, if you know me for 2 seconds, you know I'm an advocate for men changing and cultural norms for men. I'm always advocating for that. So if you're a man, please talk about mental health. You know, if you've had mental health, talk to mental health about to your cousins or to the people that are around you and say, look, I had depression, I had anxiety, this is what I did. So the more men talk about it and accept that they're experiencing this, the more it's going to be easier for society to change, because we can say women can talk about it, but women can talk about everything. So it might not be as impactful. But if men, grown men, because I have seen, you know, in therapy rooms, men over 50, when they start, you know, they're retiring, impact who are they? Who am I now that I'm over 50 and I have retired, I do not have a job? That's the only thing that made me feel like a man, because I was this person in this job providing X, Y, and Z. Who are you now? That leads to depression, and that person is at high risk of dying by suicide because their purpose is gone. So we need to remind men their purpose is not just being a provider. Like you have many roles. Like people look up to you to educate, to inform, to nurture as well. When, you know, you're not just for one thing. So I think men need to change these narratives themselves and take mental health by the horns, as I say, and talk about it. Because I know if there's, you know, is it 1 in 5 is men or 1 in 4 men are taking their lives by suicide? It means they're the biggest people that are being affected by it. So start talking about it, guys.
Yeah, I totally concur with what you're sharing. I think a key point that we tend to miss whenever we talk about men and mental health is the whole idea of resilience. We constantly have the perspective that to be a man, you need to burst through walls, do the unmanageable, you know, crack everything out without complaining.
Yeah, you're not machines.
Yeah, we're not we're not Iron Man. Before you're you're a man, you're a human being.
True. Yeah.
You are exposed to factors as stress, which we get to understand, if unresolved, can possibly lead to mental health issues. You are exposed to heartbreak. You're exposed to everything. I've gotten to have a conversation with a lot of men and boys alike, and we've asked, okay, so we're being asked to open up. However, we're being exposed to a lot of criticism, you know, and we feel like telling us to open up is telling us to shut down as men and avoid the whole idea of our roles. But that's not it. There are many ways of resolving issues. What is being expressed is, hi, this route is not helping. I know it makes you feel stronger if you keep on pursuing it, but it's not bearing fruit. Can we talk about alternate resolves? That doesn't make you less of a man, doesn't make you less of a person either. It just makes you get to understand that you're mortal at the end of the day. You're skin and bone, you can break, and you can be vulnerable to a lot of things. Once we get to understand that, I believe we might get to progress in a much more healthier way, because a man is perceived as the protector, the provider, and all that. So there's that feeling that as a protector and a provider, you need to be stone. But nah, you just need to understand who you are first, and who you are isn't iron, who you are is a person. So if you're a person, then you understand how to approach certain situations. This hurts me. I can break down from this. What else can I do to change that situation? And understanding that crying doesn't mean you're weak.
Yes.
It's just, it's like when you have to go for a short call or a long call or so on, it's your body trying to process things. Your tears are a way of your body needing to process everything. So don't inhibit yourself from the realities of your humanity. Embrace them instead.
Got it. We'd like to get to hear from you. The question we are asking you is, how do we change the narrative on suicide? The number is 0707-303-212. Talk to us. We'd like to hear from you on how you think we can be able to change the narrative on suicide. And I had also asked, if someone close to you was struggling, would you be able to notice? There's a message here that says, yeah, if someone close to me was struggling, I will notice if they're going through difficulties, because the person may suddenly maybe become quiet and not showing up as before. If it was a close friendship and some other signs, I am sure I can be able to notice. That is Morris from Mombasa. And thank you, Morris, for your response. Now, speaking about that, let's get into the telltale signs, because as Morris has put it, if this was someone they're used to, someone that is close to them, they would notice, because maybe they would go quieter, maybe not show up for them as they used to. What are some other telltale signs that we can be able to point out and help in preventing before we now already have maybe a case of suicide? And, you know, even having that in mind, also speaking about the people who may sometimes appear to be the happiest in the room, and then later you hear that they died by suicide. Then you remain wondering. I thought someone who gets to that point is someone who you can tell they are quiet, they are not, but there are those who become overly loud. So if you can speak about that.
I think for me, language is really important. So you could find someone that's always really happy, but then they're saying, oh, you know, life has gotten really hard these days. When I'm telling someone, oh, pengine nasikia tu, pengine hata nisikwe hapa. No, ama oh, you know, nimekuwa na shida mingi sana, ninasumbua watu, sitaki kuambia watu shida zangu. So that's a sign that maybe something's going on underneath and they don't want to say anything. So if you hear that type of language, people saying they've had too many issues, they're a burden to other people, or they're struggling to find their purpose in the world, and they think, oh, pengine, you know, maisha imekuwa ngumu sasa, siwezi kufanya kitu. That type of language is can be telltale that the person's on the verge of giving up, let's say, or they're starting to give up. Or, you know, you could be inviting someone to come out and this person's always turning it down. So it doesn't matter if they used to come out before. Is family gathering, this person's always missing. And it could be the person who's creating the most problems in the family. You know, most families have one person who's always the one that's creating drama, but that person's the one everybody needs to be looking out for, because that person's crying for help because of the drama they're creating. So it could just be that, you know, we need to send them to ask them if they want to see a therapist. Also, people can be, you know, addicted to alcohol addiction. So if you find that people are constantly drinking alcohol, every single day they have to have a little drink, like 7 days a week. You know, I had this conversation with someone the other day. They're like, actually, Judith, that's the norm in Nairobi. We drink alcohol, we party, that's a norm. But I was very much around, is that a cultural norm that you need to challenge? Or is it a norm that people use for avoidance? Or, you know, because sometimes we can use something to just cover up. So I think just check your habits. Are you doing this thing because it's a cultural norm? But if it's a cultural norm, if it's a damaging cultural norm, why do we not challenge it? And if you dig deeper, a lot of these addictions, substance addiction, alcohol, it's always something going on underneath the behavior. So I think noticing things like that about yourself, I don't care if you've been, you know, drinking for 20 years every day, you need to check what that's about, because that could be something that's sending you to an early, you know, dying by suicide. So I think those are some of the things, cultural norms, languages.
And we'll get into the cultural norms, but maybe, Dete, you can add on to that, just the tell signs.
I think it goes deeper than that, really. It goes to the point of conscious awareness. So if you're present and you know this person, are you able to identify the changes? The changes, if you want to notice the changes, they have a closeness to depressive-based changes that are there. Isolation, change in appetites. You either see this person eating too little or using food as a coping mechanism. So eating too much, binge eating and such. We have drinking also that is present. If you're consciously aware, then you'll be able to identify a majority of these issues. But if you're not, then it's going to be a problem. And it finds us asking questions like, what happened? We were with so-and-so. He was so happy. But we forgot those small basic signs. I wouldn't call them small, but they're quite basic signs that are there. This person withdraws, this person drinks too much, this person has difficulty with sleeping. If we're able to identify behavioral change in that way, then we are able to see a great deal of progress.
I just want to add, sometimes you may not see coming. Right? Sometimes the person can maintain the habits of, you know, being happy, being present when they're with people. And they'll show up, and then obviously they'll die by suicide, and everybody will be lost thinking what happened. So I wanted to add that just to say, for the people that have been left by someone who they thought was okay, and then suddenly they just died by suicide, there could be a guilt left behind. And I just want to say, try and work through that guilt, because it's not your fault that that person did that. So, you know, work on that accountability feeling that you're having and the guilt. Because some people, especially parents, when their children do that, they will forever blame themselves for that. Or, you know, the sisters and brothers will be like, oh, we should have seen it coming. We should have known. No. Some people just do it and nobody knows. So go therapy and work on yourself if that's a feeling. And
you know, we need to be winding up on this conversation, and even as we do that, maybe we can talk a bit about maybe some cultural beliefs that are also enabling this, because, you know, you hear of places whereby it's part of the culture. If someone dies by suicide, then they're buried at night because of the shame. You know, if someone dies by suicide, for some, they need to be beaten. You know, you beat them because I think that's superstition, whereby they say if you don't beat them, then it's going to come back. That spirit will continue in that family. So you need to beat this person before burying them. Yes. So there's some of these cultural norms that I feel should be demystified completely, if you agree with me. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you have to say to that, William, but I'm a strong believer of, mental health is an illness.
Yeah.
So you have to treat anybody that dies by suicide as someone that died by a disease, cancer, whatever, right, heart attack.
Yeah.
So you treat them with the same respect and dignity that you would have done with the other person. Now, I understand cultural superstition, beliefs, etc. But I think some of these beliefs that we carry through generations, we need to start questioning the beliefs. Are they actually helping us all? Are they helping us to be more happier, enjoy our lives more, prevent people dying by suicide? Are they helping us? And if they're not, someone needs to start asking that question and actually changing the norms, because a lot of the superstition or the beliefs happen when you fully believe in them. So maybe challenge the belief around that.
Yeah. All right. I'll take your final remarks on this conversation.
Well, we need to understand that suicide is something that has been happening.
Yeah.
And we need to now approach it and have a normal talk about it. There's no need to hide from it. We've had mental health organizations and practitioners present and feel very obliged to want to learn more. The more you want to learn, the more you will grow. The more you will grow, the more you progress. So you won't have that perspective of, okay, I have this fixed belief and I will move with it. Because it won't work that way.
Okay.
And we're currently working on a webinar.
Yes. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
It's challenging the narrative on suicide.
When is it happening?
So it will be happening this week on Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Any interested parties can reach out through the number 0726 144 949. So once you're able to reach out, make a booking, come learn, come experience more.
Amazing. Your final remarks?
I just want to say, normalize mental health, okay? It's like any other disease. And I'm just putting a call out, as usual, to men. Please talk about it. When you're going through something, tell your other men that you're going to therapy or you're getting help about depression, anxiety, money, finances. If a man is struggling with his business, they wouldn't just sit there and be, I'm not going to tell anybody, I'm just going to struggle away with my business. They find a business advisor or they go to someone who's doing well in business and they get the advice. So guys, do the same. If your mental health is deteriorating, find a qualified person, talk to them, get it sorted.
All right.